CosmicRadio.tv.
Cinema Talk. Rafi.
Welcome to Cinematography. I'm your host, Roberto Villegas.
And I'm Brant Hughes.
And today we're going to break down the 500 Days of Summer scene between expectation and reality.
All right, so first off, we have this Regina Spektor song.
Yeah. What I love about this specific song right now is how much it's actually foretelling everything that is going down.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I never noticed it the first time I watched the scene, but watching it now again, it is hauntingly saying stuff. Like it has,
Sure.
Like Larry's like never saw it coming.
Even speaking more towards the end of the film, that it's all going to be fine. This This isn't the end for Tom.
Well, again, like the lyrics at the end, they say, "I'm the hero of the story. Like it's all right. It's going to be all right."
I'm the hero of the story.
And it's kind of a weird way of having this sort of very depressing moment in our main character's life.
And, it fits in tonally and thematically with the rest of the film. Regina Spektor's used throughout. And also, I just want to make a quick note of this shot. This shot is very telling of some of the common themes that happen throughout this scene. So we start off with this really slow push-in, but as we do so, we see Tom kind of depart from the tracking of the shot, right? So I feel like the slow push-in is kind of a precursor of like he is moving forward with his story as he sees it, but also as Tom kind of goes even further into frame, he is sort of this is the moment where he is detaching himself from the experience in some capacity.
Well, this is also the point. Like you mentioned that he gets lost in the tracking. This is also when our feed splits.
Yeah.
As we kind of go in a bit further,
this is going to become his departure.
Yeah, because the narrator's kicking in, explaining all the stuff with expectation. Like that's exactly when it happens. Like at that moment where it just as he's talking, all the expectations align with the reality. You've already lost him in the shot. It fades to black and it cuts right here.
Yeah.
What I love about this is how quickly he gets up the stairs in his expectations and how much he doesn't have to do. Whereas in reality, like he is way slower at getting up there.
Yeah, absolutely. And not just speaking towards the narrative implications of his character going through this process, but also it's such a smart, clever way to control the pacing of this first segment.
Yeah.
Because all of it has to be pretty intricately planned to have things sync up just perfectly in certain areas.
Exactly.
And so being able to prolong the walking of the reality situation, and the shot in reality starts with him further down the hallway.
Right.
It allows him to have a longer, more intimate conversation with Summer once he gets to the top of the stairs.
If you look at him go up the stairs in expectations, he's all happy. And like you see here, he goes up. He goes up again, but he's like very lethargic and he's going up like he's kind of sad and
You're tired.
And the best thing, I'm going to pause right now because this is a great example of showing it. If you notice in the expectation, it is a very empty area, whereas in the reality, it's an honest to God party. And what I love about what that implies is that Tom's expectation is that when he's coming into this, that it's going to be this small little thing.
Yeah,
it's sort of like
an
private
intimate
moment.
gathering. Yes.
Yeah, this private moment between him and Summer because, he's coming in and saying like, yeah, I'm finally going to get this girl again. I'm finally going to be with her. This person that I've built my love life around and my sort of future that I can see myself being part of. Whereas that's what his expectation is. That's what I love about the shot because you can see already, they're both mirrored perfectly. Like they're both getting, kind of hug and things like that. And you see in the background here on the expectation, there's all this like empty space. You can kind of see some lights and stuff like that. Whereas in the reality, there's already people gathering and kind of hanging around.
Yeah, and also just speaking towards like the interpersonal relationship contrast here, you see in the expectations, Summer is far more flirty, far more inviting and welcoming, and there's definitely an intimacy in their interaction, whereas reality, it is a far more platonic kind of interaction that Summer is.
It's a party. It's a casual
Sure,
thing.
yeah.
She's hostess, and the focus isn't necessarily on them.
And so this is our first perfectly synced duplication of the shot where reality and expectations are, in fact, the same thing. This very minor moment.
Because, he's coming through the door, he sees the party, he goes, okay, maybe maybe it's not quite exactly what I expected, but it's going to be the same thing, right? I mean, everything's going to be cool, right?
And
then bam.
Right there, he gives the nod out, and then we see another contrast in the set design and the background characters. There are far more people in the reality side of things,
right?
Which helps build that kind of busy, chaotic nature of things. And then expectations, there are far fewer people. All the people are paired up.
Yeah, but not even that. The thing that I notice a lot, and I see throughout the whole scene, is that the expectation, both Summer and him are the focus. Like, you notice here, the expectation, he gives the nod. In the reality, no one cares because everyone's freaking drinking and talking in their own conversations, stuff like that. Much like you would at a real party if you didn't see anybody there.
Sure.
Like if I went to the party, I didn't see any. If I saw a friend back, I'd say, "Hey, how's it going?" and wave that way. Whereas Tom sort of expects, like, he just nods and someone's going to be there. And in his expectation, there is like, "Hey, Tom, it's glad to meet you." Thinking Summer talked about him, where in reality, just like, no, that's not how it happens.
Yeah, and this is another step towards building up this continuing theme of Tom being separated and excluded from his surroundings in reality, whereas in expectation he's kind of one with the environment.
Yeah,
him and Summer. Immediately right there, we see it's a super quick moment, but Tom has an immediate reaction where in reality he's upset that nobody acknowledged him.
Right.
You see him wearing it on his face.
Yeah.
Whereas expectations, he's
and the thing is that in the reality,
but
the night just gets worse.
Sure.
So here's our next sync shot with the opening of the gift.
You shouldn't have.
This is also the first moment where we get audio feed from the reality.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't really care so much about what Summer is saying. He just cares that she receives it in such a warm way.
Right, exactly. Because that's one thing I was going to point out. Like, once we get beyond this scene here and we get into the party proper, that the audio is going to be just from the reality. And if you notice in the shot here on the expectation, Summer and Tom are both in center frame. They are the thing of the focus, the focal point of the shot. Whereas here in reality, they are but an element in the crowd of the party.
Yeah, and with expectations here, everybody else is paired off into their own separate little groups, whereas Tom and Summer can kind of have that more exclusive conversation. But also, we'll see that this expectation shot is a long push in on the two of them, kind of uncut. It sort of builds that intimacy. They are part of the environment. They're welcome there. They fit in just right.
Right.
Whereas in reality, we're going to cut to a bunch of one-shots, a lot of close-ups of people, which helps separate them in your mind. There is a detachment. There is a loss of closeness.
Now, Tom is drinking very heavily in reality.
Sure, yeah.
And I think that's the one thing I think that really contrasts this, because there's even a shot later on where he is making himself a drink. But it's the one thing that I notice is that I almost expect at this point for him to start thinking that expectation isn't even real. But at this point, I love the fact that the audio of the expectation is never even addressed. It's not even that matters.
Yeah, because really it doesn't matter to Tom.
Right.
Just having that moment with Summer matters, but he never really planned far enough ahead to imagine what they would even be talking about.
Right, because you hear this, and he's talking about all the depressing moments in his life, the things that he hates and can't stand. Hear this.
Why make something disposable like a building when you can make something that lasts forever, like a greeting card?
This is interesting because although Tom is speaking to Summer's friends, he's not really speaking to Summer's friends.
No.
Really, he's having a conversation with Summer, or at least trying to.
Yeah.
And so he is speaking to her about something that they have common ground with, which is they think that his job kind of sucks, but he's still there, she's not. And he's really just trying to strike some kind of common ground with Summer because they haven't really connected since he got there.
Well, because he himself is upset at this point. It's very clear in this shot what his expectation was going to be. I mean, that's one of the cool things about this shot in general, why we chose to break it down, because it really clearly shows what's going on in Tom's head. This is what Tom believed was going to happen. He believed it was going to be him and Summer, and they were going to make this magical connection, and something was going to happen, when in reality, it was just like, yeah, come to the party kind of thing. And Tom is right now at this point just trying to come to grips with that and trying to almost say to Summer, why the hell did you invite me to this? You're toying with me. and you don't even realize you're toying with me. And here we see Tom. This is also a great shot too.
Yeah, and I have a little bit of a conspiracy about this.
Okay.
About this shot.
Go for it.
It might be a little bit of a stretch, but I think it has subtle but noticeable subconscious effects on you.
I think I know you're going to point out, but go on.
All right, so obviously this is shot right around the golden hour.
Right.
You're going to get your optimal lighting. They might have a little bit of light blocked off maybe, but I think they're probably just shooting in the shadow of a building or something to get, more even lighting. But if you look at the buildings in the background...
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Right? So I have reason to believe that the left shot was shot first. It was shot when the sun was still above the horizon, even if just slightly. And then the right shot was shot afterwards. So the sun is just below the horizon. It's a little bit darker. And so we also see the left frame is a little bit positioned over to the left, so you get that light fixture in the bottom left corner. But a little bit of camera mechanics.
Right.
So obviously the light is going to have a subtle effect on your perception of the event. You're going to think that it's a little bit more happy, a little bit more joyous. But when we go over to the right shot, it's going to be a little bit darker, so the first thing they probably do is open up the aperture of the lens just a little bit, just to get the lighting as even as they possibly can. So that way it kind of gives that twin shot feel. But one of the side effects of that is when you open up the aperture, your depth of field gets even shallower.
Oh.
And so whether intentional or not, I don't think it's a huge difference, but you could kind of see it in some of those palm trees in the background. On the right-hand side, they're a little bit more blurred out. So it furthers that idea of Tom being completely separated and isolated, desolate, lonely. And it's a very subtle effect.
Well, no, the thing is that the minute when I saw the shot and the contrast is that I caught was definitely the lighting of the buildings. The way I implied it was that because the expectation is sort of this dream state, this ideal thing, you're going to think it being bright and happy and stuff like that. Whereas reality is not going to be quite like that. It's going to be lit and it's going to be clear because, that's how the eye sees. But it's not going to be this sort of bright gold. I mean, even in the expectation, we have reflections off the buildings. We have all this sort of stuff like the sun is perfectly there. And it's just like, oh, my God, I'm with summer and everything is happy. And this is the greatest day of my life. Whereas in reality, we have Tom drinking alone.
It's a little bit more dreary.
It's very dreary because he's, it's not sad because it's a party and it's not like it's raining or anything like that. Like that might be overkill. But this is sort of what's in his mind. He's like he's
just touching a window with rain running down it.
Like that would be overkill. But what I like about this is that it's such a subtle thing because it's the fact that he's there alone. He's drinking a beer. He's looking out into the distance, the blurry distance from our point of view, completely that. Whereas in expectation land, he's staring into Summer's eyes. He's smiling and she's smiling and they're holding hands and it's all this magical moment. Where in reality, it's just what it is, my friend, and there's nothing you can do about it, and it's very real. Because even in the shot, when Summer and Tom are there, they're laughing, they're joyous, they're like, oh, this is such a great moment.
It's a very ideal best case scenario.
Yeah, whereas reality ain't like that.
What?
And he even stares a bit, and the shot even cuts off here, which I love this contrast here for sure, because he's seeing Summer all happy, all like talking to all their friends and everything else, and saying, "Hey, how's it going?" Being hostess as you would at a party, which I always found fun about the shot because I don't know what Tom thought when it came to hey, come to this party kind of thing, and when it was told on that moment, because this expectation isn't real. No. Like even in the best case scenario, this isn't a real expectation. I think that's what really contrasts in this shot right here, because we see Summer doing the hostess thing, and yet in his expectation, he still believes that's what's good. It's those two that matter. That's their story. It's not her story.
And really, the Summer between these two shots is not all that different. I mean, obviously there's an intimacy with the expectation side, but just like her upbeat, happy, fulfilled self is the same in both shots. But the reality, it continues that theme that we saw when Expectations was doing the slow zoom in. We're not seeing Summer and Tom in the same frame. Like, that's how far detached they are at this point in time.
Well, because even then, the expectation, Tom feels that the story should focus on him and Summer. That this is the story beat, if you will, of life. That I'm gonna get back the girl, and I'm gonna be with the love of my life, and this is gonna be the one. Whereas in reality, that's not quite how story beats work. Even though we're watching a movie, it's not like a movie. It's not like this story film thing where the expectation kicks in. Because right here is where they start walking off.
And also, when we cut back to Tom, we go in for a more telescopic zoom onto him.
Yeah.
So obviously he's much larger in frame, but also another side effect of that is your depth of field gets even shallower.
Yeah.
So
you really focus
he's
on
hyper isolated.
But even here, because we're about to come into my next favorite shot, whereas the expectation is he's going to make out with Summer, make love with her, and have this super intimate moment. Your typical, very cliche intimate moment. Where in reality, he's making himself just this concoction of a drink, and I don't even know what's quite in it. I'm betting it's just like vodka and that lime, and that's about it, really.
Sure, it's very much his coping mechanism for reality.
Exactly, it's like this because you already saw him doing it with the beer, and now he's moving on to heavier stuff. Like, I can't stand this. This is so bad.
So I think it's also worth noting the color palette here.
Oh, yeah.
So one of the very smart things that they did throughout the film is they only show blue when Summer is on screen. So they do have some blue in the expectation frames with Summer. But since it's filtered through Tom and it's not, it's obviously not real. I feel like the blues are very subdued in that frame.
Yeah.
They're very muted. They're very filtered through that kind of yellow, orange, amber kind of
there's a bit of a rosy kind of lighting in this for sure.
Pushed over it, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that just really helps to sell the effect that there's kind of a hint of maybe something that sort of resembles Summer, but it's not truly accurate.
No, not at all. Because as we go down the scene, as Tom looks, this is like the coolest part of the shot. As reality sets in completely, this is where everything goes away. Where, and I think we talked about this in the commentary for sure, but this is where that expectation just is completely gone. And I love the way that the shot pushes aside, not just simply like cuts to it or whatever, but slowly pushes aside. Because that's what's going in inside Tom's mind at this point, is that as he turns around, sees the ring, sees all the stuff, everything clicks in. And that expectation that he had just gets pushed away. And we find ourselves at night. We find ourselves in an entirely different scene, and we're no longer we no longer have the expectation.
Yeah, it's very masterfully done. I think it's kind of great because in the expectation frame, the way that they do that smooth transition is by timing up the push out with the closing of a door,
right?
Both metaphorically and literally,
right? Because that's like, oh, they're closing the door, they're about to have some crazy time, and like, no, that's just that's the dream fading, sir.
And also, it's just an incredible transition. Maybe going into the party, he might thought that at this point in time he would be where his expectation was. But even up to him making the drink, he still thought that was a potential outcome later on.
Because the expectation was there. Everything was. It was still like, all right, fine. I'll just suck down this drink. Once this party ends, I'll be able to hang out with her. But then right here, reality sets in, and we get a close up shot right at the ring as the song kicks in, like very heavily. It starts says, "I'm the hero of the story. Don't need to be saved." That the lyrics kick in very masterfully at that point of like, I don't. This is where Tom like completely flips out in the shot.
He was just so blindsided.
Yeah, because he sees it and he just starts like he can't handle it. He rushes down the stairs. It's such a powerful moment because, in the commentary I said some things, but even the shot wise, it's amazing how it cuts to it. Because once he sees the ring, it's not like he screams or anything like that. He just kind of goes, oh. And realizes he has to rush out.
Fight or flight.
Yeah, the fight or flight. Exactly.
In,
and
right.
it's a flight because he doesn't know how to handle it because he had gotten so wrapped up in his expectation being the reality that he didn't know how to handle the reality that, when it happened.
And also it's a great bit of misdirection for the audience, right? Because seeing that comparison the whole time, sometimes it syncs up, sometimes it doesn't, but it feels close enough to some extent that your mind is still in that mode of like, oh, how is he going to resolve this? And then just to reach the total polar opposite of expectation is just, it really takes the wind out of you.
Well, because like I said, when that scene happens, the shot where they just fade it all back, that's it. That's the end.
Yeah.
And what I like about it is that Tom is definitely running now. Like, whereas he was walking into it, even in the reality, he was walking into it slowly in the expectation a little bit beatier. He's rushing down these stairs now and running out of that building without even care. Like, he's a little erratic. He slams his door open, and even the song right now is kicking in, it's all right, almost like it's calming him down as the hero of our story. It's such a powerful moment because even as he kind of gets into his final frame, everything starts erasing. That's such a powerful thing because it's almost like at this point in time, Tom's world is going away. Like what Tom had built up his world around Summer and the idea of him and Summer being something. And visually, this is so stunning because it is the erasing of that world and the erasing of that dream in a very visual way. Everything turns black or white. We see Tom has frozen in the shot, just head down and completely somber. Everything's getting erased, like it's just like this ugly artist painting that he doesn't want. It just and it kind of just goes in this sort of blob of gray. That is my life now.
Yeah, and this is a very pivotal moment for Tom, and you see throughout the film that he's built so much of his worldview based on The Graduate and films and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And for them to have led him so astray in his expectations.
Well, that's the thing is that, he
has to really reevaluate things at this moment in time.
Well, because if you go back to the expectation area, it's so idyllic. Like, it's so perfect. Like, if you focus just purely on the expectation, it is so like that movie. Mm-hmm. Like this is the moment in the movie, for example, if we were doing that kind of Graduate, where it'd be like this montage sequence and this happy music would come, and then they'd, get to the makeout scene and stuff like that. It would never be, no one would know the conversation. Mm-hmm. It's a little too perfect.
Sure, yeah.
Whereas reality is what it was probably going to happen and should happen.
And I'm one of these people who gets incredibly anxious and nervous around anything, particularly social events and just speaking to people. And so I am very familiar with the experience of practicing conversations and events and like planning out in detail everybody's reactions to every conversation I could possibly have. So this really strikes true because sometimes you get trapped in that, oh, this is exactly what I want to have happen, so I'm going to pretend that this is going to happen.
For me, I will kind of too, to a certain degree. It's worse when I have the expectation of what a relationship's going to go to. Because if I have a conversation with somebody and it doesn't go the way I think it is, it's fine. Because I've definitely fallen into Tom's trap before, where I will think something will go a certain way, and when it doesn't, not maybe the world will go completely kaput, but I've definitely been caught in that trap. Tom definitely is the extreme of that, which I know we're pausing the shot, but I'm noticing now Tom is staring straight at the camera. Like, even that smile. Even that, like, smile of, why do, the disposal, like a greeting card, like, he's giving that, like, half smile, like, why the fuck am I here? And it's, I say it like that because it's so heartbreaking for him, because you see what he was expecting. You see what he was dreaming, what he was hoping, what was going through his mind at this exact moment of what it should have been, what it would have been if it had been the movie.
And he's also, at this point in the film, he's at such an emotionally vulnerable state that we see in the reality side, alcohol is a certain coping mechanism, but I think the expectation side is very much another coping mechanism, just an internal one for him.
Yeah. Well, because the expectation is them. Like, it is purely focused on them. And then reality will cut between the two of them. Mm-hmm. But the shot is pretty much within the expectation land. It is focused on them. Like, it's the montage sequence that would happen in these kind of typical romantic films. The movies that he grew up watching, the things that he was told was supposed to happen, everything that you're supposed to believe is supposed to happen in love and all that stuff is here. But that's not the case. That's not how it always plays out.
Yeah, in all of those movies, you're following the protagonist for a specific reason, and that's because they're going to experience an arc, and they're going to have everything work out for them. And so I think this is a really interesting, fascinating portrayal of a more realistic experience of someone who, obviously we are part of Tom's story, but Tom as a person is always going to see every event as part of his story. So he thinks, if I'm the hero of this story, it's got to work out for me.
Yeah, this is the beat where I get the girl. This is the beat where I finally hook up with her. Everything happens now. This is the moment that everything's supposed to kick off. Everything's going to work out. Oh, crap. And that's it. That's the moment. And it's such a powerful way of doing it because he sees everything crashing down right here. And it's so goddamn powerful. It's so depressing because he's just like, well, maybe I still got a chance. Maybe I still got a chance. Maybe I still got a chance. No, I don't got a chance.
Yeah, it's pretty heartbreaking.
It's so heartbreaking. And it sucks because, like, even though we know what reality is going to hold, we can see what's reality is happening, we still want Tom to pull through because even though reality is the way it is, we still like Tom. You know, we still want Tom to win in some way. If in Tom's story, getting Summer is the quote-unquote win condition, you know, we want that to happen. But reality doesn't always happen that way. And I still love the way that it just cuts here and doesn't even bother explaining reality anymore. It just knows we're there.
And also, this shot at the end here, we're finally back to tracking on Tom.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting. So we feel like he went through that little detour of fantasy, and now he's kind of back to reality.
And his reality is being erased, being completely and utterly obliterated. And all that remains is him and this, like, weird gray blob. It's such a powerful scene. It might be... I don't know if it's my favorite scene from this film. It's definitely one of my top scenes.
It absolutely ranks among them. Director Mark Webb, he does a couple kind of diptych split frame methods throughout the film here and there, which you don't see often. It's pretty rare that you see any kind of split frame composition stuff, but this is absolutely...
Well, especially in that regard. I mean, I've seen split frame composition when it's like two things going at the same time that are happening in parallel.
But even then, only sometimes, because a lot of times you'll just intercut between the two scenes.
I'm saying like they're both going like parallel and they're two separate events in the same time frame, usually from 70s films, things like that. Definitely not like this, where it's two things that are happening in different realities, you know, in terms of that. It's such a powerful way of doing it.
And absolutely unique, and definitely one of the best, most effective scenes throughout an excellent film.
Oh, God, yes. Thank you guys for joining us. Of course, you can catch all of our previous content at CosmicRadio.tv/cinematography. Brent, where can people find you online these days?
You can find me on Twitter at Gatowag, GATOWAG.
And of course, you can find me. I'm at Vincent404. So until next time, ta-ta.
Cinema breaking it down. Break it down.
This has been a CosmicRadio.tv production. For more awesome shows, head on over to our website, CosmicRadio.tv.